Just doing a quick screen recording of a few things to talk about when it comes to the current display of information in EdCast and kind of like the why and how behind the look and feel that we're going with. Just to address some questions that David has had with his team, but also just to give more of an overview for anyone who needs to know why EdCast looks the way it does and how new content can fit into that look and feel. So I just went into the admin panel and I'll show everyone how I did that in a second, but I wanted to start with the Discover page and go through the storyboard that Josh and I and JC have created and then worked through with Katie when we were deciding what would come up on this Discover page and why it's there. Something to remember as well is that it's really quick and easy to edit the Discover page. And so I think that we can likely reassess this pretty frequently to get current information and content out to specific learners, depending on what we're launching, what they're interested in, and what time in the launch we're in. So the first section, the first carousel is this Get Started with GitLab Learn. The purpose for this during this launch is specifically to direct users to some really useful documentation that they might need as they're getting used to the LXP. So for example, the first thing that we have is a smart card that goes to the user documentation that answers questions about how do I log in to EdCast? How do I get to my groups? How do I get to my courses? All of those like common questions that we anticipate people to have. This carousel is a really great example of something that probably after we launch to the wider GitLab team, we can remove and then perhaps put back up when we launch to the wider community and eventually probably remove from this first carousel and feature it later on the page, just because it won't be as necessary as more people learn how to use the platform. This next carousel right now is just here because we are featuring field enablement since the TAMs are the only ones in the platform. But I left it on here for the purpose of this recording because it's a carousel that we can utilize moving forward, featuring more groups in this carousel and renaming it so that it's a faster way for team members to access groups that they're a part of. So an example could be we could feature the GitLab team members group here. Anyone who's a GitLab team member, when they log in, will see it on their Discover page. Anyone who is not won't see it on their Discover page. And that applies for that's the same with other groups. If it's a private group, it won't show up. If it's a public group and we want it out there, people can opt in to join. Next is another example of how we're featuring field enablement, but this is something that I think we can utilize in the future whenever new teams have content that they would like to be featured for. This is a display of one single channel and it takes up the entire page, as you can see. So I think that this is kind of an marketing sort of technique we can use within EdCast to get content in front of learners. I really like this feature, and I think as more people onboard on the platform, it will become more dynamic, but it's an opportunity to follow learners at GitLab, follow learners within the platform that we can build out. It's manually built, so I went in and just honestly, I chose everyone on the team who had a profile picture to make it look nicer. And it's something that in the future, perhaps we could feature leadership learning. We could feature specific teams who are working through different kinds of courses, etc. The next are some examples of carousels that feature channels. So we have some learning and development channels, DevOps channels. I think that channels moving forward can be used as a really great way to broadcast content to learners, especially for new learners who are trying to discover new information. So for example, if we have a course for L&D that we want to assign to certain team members, we can also add it to this leadership development channel. So anyone interested in leadership development can find that course. Here we have a channel that's already built into EdCast that we can hide and show. My assumption is that this is showing content based on the skills and information that I gave to EdCast upon logging in that I was interested in, and it will do the same for other learners, but it's just showing content that's trending in the platform. Another example of a channel, this one is all remote. And also I've turned all of these on for the purpose of this recording. I'm going to shut them off afterwards. And finally, we have this link featured providers, which I think will be really useful moving forward, especially when we have our LinkedIn Learning integration all set up. But it's a really great way for people to access the security release and also to get to the GitLab TV and the YouTube channel. This looks like Yahoo, but I'm not really sure. Oh no, it's Hacker News. Okay, it's Y Combinator. Okay, so this is just an overview, I guess, of what the Discover page looks like. Let me just go through admin in case anyone's wondering. And if you already know how to edit this, you can just skip through this content. But anyways, there's two different places where you need to be to create and organize the Discover page. Custom carousels in the content section is where you can create a carousel for the Discover page that doesn't already exist within the platform, and you can enable them or disable them over here in this right panel. So you can see we have Get Started with GitLab Learn, Grow Your Career, all of the other carousels I just went through. Some are off. You can see this one's off and the newsfeed is off. And then if you want to arrange the way that the actual Discover page looks, you go over to Settings, Configuration, Discover tab. Here you can drag and drop, and you can move the way that the carousels appear. You can also toggle the built-in carousels on and off, and you can change the names of them here. You can see that there's a lot more that are built in that I think here's an example of like learning influencers that we can utilize as more people get into the platform in the future. But yes, so just wanted to go over kind of like the why of everything is here. I think that the purpose of this Discover page should really be a few different goals, but first I think is featuring content that we want learners to be finding, especially when it's new in the platform, making it easy for learners to get to where they know they can find content in the platform. So making it easy for them to access groups that they're a part of, making it easy to get to channels that they're following. And then finally, I think the last piece is more of what EdCast is great at, and just curating information that appears in things like this What's Trending and those other built-in carousels where users are seeing information that they want to see based on what they told EdCast they're interested in. Okay. Just want to make sure I'm going over everything. So that was a high-level overview. The why behind the overall design, and then how new content can fit into the broader user experience. I think I kind of touched on this, but the discussion I'd like to have as a group and kind of the vision that I've been developing for it is really about the way that we're using channels and groups to broadcast information. So thinking about to answer this question, how does new content fit into this broader user experience? I think when we're creating content, it's important to think about a couple of things. If the content that we're creating is very specific for one group of learners, then utilizing groups to assign that content it's become clear that that's really the fastest and most effective way, I think, to get content to a certain group of users. I think that the second piece of that is utilizing channels so that new learners in the platform and learners who are in different teams than where that content was initially created for can find that and self-select to learn if they want. So I think it's going to become really important as we are building out best practices for building content in EdCast to think about who is this content initially for based on the groups that we're assigning it to, and then what channels does this content fit into as well so that we can do better to broadcast that information to new learners. I think that that's all that I'm going to go over in this video. In the meeting notes, I'll add some links to the images because I think that kind of also goes into this look and feel. And actually, let me just see if I can get those up really quick because I want to just show one thing about the images that the branding team has been working with us on. Bear with me. Okay, so I've been working with Matt over on this issue, and I wanted to just show the templates that we've been working on and approving for why and the purpose behind them. So something that became really clear, and this also fits into the user experience and how new content fits into this user experience, is making it very visually clear to learners when they're accessing individual pieces of content as smart cards or groups of content as groups or channels. And so when I was working with Matt, we kind of came up with a plan to use different kinds of images based on the construct of content in EdCast so that learners are visually cued to what they're getting. So for example, for smart cards, we have these 2 templates we're going to be using where we'll choose an image, and we have a few different photographers that we're going to be choosing images from with this kind of graphic overlay over here. And we have 2 different examples where we can use it with the black text or the white text, depending on what the color of the background is. But anyways, this image of this overlay with an image behind it is going to indicate a smart card, a piece of smart card content. Where this image, where we have this graphic background and a GitLab icon here, can be a way that we indicate, okay, this is actually a channel. This is channel content now, and using this this icon to indicate what that content in the channel might be. And then finally, for a group, using a similar graphic background to the channels, but having it over here set to the left and using an image here as well. So users will say, okay, when I see this kind of setup, this image, I know I'm in a group. Because I think something that I've noticed, for example, if I'm going to open up this channel, and I look at the way that a channel shows up in EdCast, we have this like pretty similar look up at the top of the channel. And then I'm also, just for an example, I'm going to open up this group. Oh, just opened the image. They're pretty similar, I think. The structure is different for sure, but I'm just not sure that as learners get in, if it's different enough for them to say, oh yeah, this is a group and this is a channel. I think that using the different kinds of images will kind of just further enhance that user experience. Okay, so just wanted to do this quick recording so I could go over all of this. Hopefully it lets us focus our meeting later on about any questions or discussions. In the doc, I also have links to 2 different MRs where I'm documenting some of these best practices. And then also, if we want to talk about documentation about handbook first learning, we can do that as well. Thanks so much.